Hello and welcome to another video. Today we are going to discuss some of the techniques I have used to make sure that my feet are dry even under the worst wet commute. Riding in the wet, especially in London, is very common in the winter and is one of the worst elements of the commute, apart from the fact that you're actually going to work and not for a ride, but it's the nature of what the commute is. You can get very good rainproof jacket. I use a helmet with less vents to make sure that water doesn't get through. There's no problem. If you got good gloves, really helpful. Definitely everything is more or less easy to set up, apart from the feet. If you do get wet feet, the ride is going to be extremely uncomfortable. There are some solutions, and I found out eventually that the best solution is a mixture of different accessories. First of all, I started with the Castelli toe thingy. Not that is a wet riding item, but mainly for the cold. I got caught under the rain with these ones and they are useless in the rain. Yeah, they might soak up a little bit of drizzle, but if the rain is persistent, this will eventually completely become wet and water will seep through. So these are good for these shoes, just to keep your toes warm, not really good in the wet. As you can see, I'm a big fan of Shimano RC7 shoes. Now these two are the newer models, the RC701, and they do have vents in the middle, and in the winter I make sure that these are taped up. This is the first step you do, of course, to winterize your shoes. So first step against the cold just is to use some sort of tips. Now what I did in a wet situation, I started using shoe covers, and I found that these BBB Aqua are very good. They do offer a good barrier against the rain. Make sure that you do select the correct overshoes. Some are just for small protection of the feet and they will get water straight through. Some are just considered a barrier against the cold, and again water will seep through. You do need to get the ones that are ideally designed to offer the best resistance against the water, and they do have usually taped seams for the stitching. These are quite good, but inevitably the design of a shoe cover will have two main problems. One is under the shoe, and the second one is of course at the calf area. Eventually, with the spray that you get underneath, even if you have taped your shoes, some of water will creep up and eventually start to penetrate throughout the vents of the shoe, if there's any. Like, for example, these are the older RC7 700 model, and they also have like a kind of netting on the top, and this is very easy for water to come through if the splash continuously come from behind the shoe. And the second is of course at your calf area, where water will eventually from your leg seep through and come flood all your shoes. Very uncomfortable situation. Ideally, if you are half a sensible person, you will ride with fenders. Fenders will stop the splash of the water coming back and reduce the amount of water that is actually coming through your legs and feet. In case you are a midlife crisis sufferer, let's assume so, and you don't want to use fenders, you might need to try even harder to winterize your shoes. These are the shoes I use mostly for the winter, and I've done a couple of steps to get in the best possible situation to have dry feet. First of all, I noticed that using the shoe cover with the grip grab cuffs was really efficient. This will fit on top and form a very good seal on your shin to make sure that the water that seeps through will actually have hard time in penetrating through your calf, and this will help enormously to make sure that you stay dry for a longer period of time. And by doing so, I do really like riding with the 3/4 tights, because against the skin this will form an even better barrier. If you use this against your normal tights, the tights will become itself wet and water will progressively seep through. However, the solution, especially on these shoes, was not ideal yet, because even though I taped the bottom vent here, water was still coming through the netting on the toe. Then the ultimate solution for me was getting this Spatz covers. These are plastic, quite strong plastic, so these are not like the Velotose, they are very thin, and I use them always in the winter on my RC7. Very useful that this older model comes with only one bore dial. This is the newer version 701 with 2 bore dials. I've done a review, by the way, on these shoes. These are by far my favorite, and I put the link below. Extremely comfortable, very rigid platform and very good value. The newer version are slightly tighter than the old one. That's why I prefer to use in the winter. The old version can accommodate a slightly thicker sock, and also the fact that there's only one bore dial works extremely well with the Spatz toe cover, because as you can see, the design is very well fitted for the shoe. It seems that it's been tailor-made for this 700 RC7 and fits perfectly. I leave this on all the time. If the weather is not particularly wet, I just ride with this, and they offer quite a nice feeling because you can still ride white shoes in the winter. They do look really racy. You can just wipe it out with a wet wipe, but when it's really wet, they go with the shoe cover on top. These are very low profile, so the shoe cover will fit on top really well, and also use the cuff cover from Grip Grab to give a very good tight fit. And I've ridden almost in an hour under the rain, and it's really comfortable. You don't get wet in the toe. This is completely sealed, very good. So even if water eventually comes through the shoe cover, that eventually will let some water in, you don't get wet in the very important part of the foot, in your toe box area. Eventually some water will seep through here and reach maybe the ankle area, but not enough to actually flood your shoe and make the ride uncomfortable. This is my best solution so far. I'm really happy. Yes, it's a little bit more faff. First you need to put the cuffs on, then the shoe cover, then the shoe cover goes on top, and eventually you roll up the cover on top to seal your ankle zone. However, there's nothing worse than riding in the wet with water flooding in your shoes. This to me is so far the best solution I have implemented. I haven't tried yet waterproof sock. I know that some riders use them. I saw them in the shop. They are very thick. I'm not sure if I will be actually comfortable with them. Maybe in the future there's something else to try. I would love to hear your comments regarding waterproof socks, if they work or not. This for me really works. Even in the worst commute, is the best solution I've found so far. Let me know in your comment what you're using to keep your feet dry in the wet, and thank you again for watching. See you to the next video. Ciao!